through chapter 12 is a summary of the conquest. And I'm not going to go through that. You can go through that. He just summarizes what's happened up to this point. And by the way, it's not over yet. Chapter 13, I just make myself some little notes about, okay, as if this is a continuing story and somebody's telling this story, or it's I view the Bible, probably y'all picked up on it, a lot of it like this, a play. And the stage is set, and you see the actors, and you see the details, and then it comes to an end, and the curtain comes down, and the stage is reset, opens up, and you got new situations, and so many years have passed, or this has happened, or whatever. So, chapter 13, I put a little note here. Go ahead and give the tribes their allotment. So it's not completely conquered yet, but he's going to say, let's go ahead and give everybody their allotment, and now it's at a point where each tribe can finish subduing their own territory. So it's not going to take everybody every time in every situation. So let's go ahead and divide the land up. You get your tribe gets your part of the land, and it's up to you to finish conquering whatever needs to be conquered in that piece of land. And some of them had still some tough hills to climb, and some tough people to conquer. And we're going to find out that some of them decided they would stop without completely driving all of them out. And the Lord's going to use that. The Lord has the ability to use things that are good and successful, and use things that seem to be less than successful to accomplish His purpose. And I'm really thankful for that. In our own personal lives, sometimes we set out to do something and we don't get it completely done. And the Lord is able to take that shortcoming and maybe discipline us a bit, remind us of some things, but still use it to accomplish His purpose. Chapter 14, you have Caleb's request in verses 6 through 13. Caleb reminds Joshua that there was a promise that was made to him, that he was going to get this piece of land, that when he had gone in as a spy, that he had wanted this piece of land. And so it had been promised to him, so he said, I'm ready to take my piece of land. And that's in verse 6. The children of Judah came to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh the Kenite, said unto him, you know the thing that the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, concerning me and you in Kadesh Barnea. He says, and it was Caleb. You realize that Joshua and Caleb were the two spies that came back, right, with a good report. And Joshua became the leader. And so Caleb will probably be something like his right-hand man during this time. But now he's at a point, and he says, I was 40 years old when I was the servant of Moses. And Moses sent me to Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. I brought him word again as it was in my heart. So he's reminding him, certainly who he's talking to knows, because the two of them were the ones that tried to bust the system and came up with this report. Nevertheless, my brothers that went out with me made the heart of the people melt, but I wholly followed the Lord my God. So he's holding on to his integrity like Job did, right? He said, I did, what was right. And there's a part of me in all of this that Moses and Joshua and Caleb and probably some other people stood up for what was right. But they had to go through the same difficulty that everybody else did because of the direction that the people chose to go. So I would say there's a lot of applications that I say we look at the direction that this country is going. That doesn't mean everybody in this country wants to go in that direction, and that there are not people that are fighting to keep going in that my brethren went up, but I follow the Lord. Moses swore to me on that day, saying, surely the land whereon your feet have trodden will be your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. And that goes back to Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 36, if you want to try and go back there. And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spoke his word unto Moses. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old. And then he said something hard for me to believe. And yet I'm as strong this day as I was yesterday. I don't know about that. He may be assessing himself a little bit. I don't know. But anyway, I'll say this. I'm not 85 yet, but I'm not the same man I was when I was 40. But I've not been marching every day, camping out and all that for all this time. He said, even so is my strength now for war, both to go out and to come in. Therefore give me this mountain where the Lord spoke in that day, where you heard how the Anakims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. And by the way, the word Anakim, I think we probably have run across that word back in Genesis. It means long neck. Long neck. Pardon? They were. And he says, the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, and I'll be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him and gave unto Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, Hebron for an inheritance. Now, that's one of those cities that if you got a little time, sometime you can trace it out and come up with some really interesting things about Hebron. Hebron will become a city of refuge. It will be one of the cities that will be designated as the city of refuge. But the area around it is going to be for Caleb and his descendants. And you can cross-reference that where it actually takes place in chapter 21, verse 11 through 13. So if you're running your Bible back and forth, and then all that's pretty informative, interesting if you're teaching sometimes, and you can go and run back and say, this is where the promise was made, this is where it was fulfilled, and so forth. So I recommend you do that in your Bible when you get the opportunity to do that. So, chapter 15, and there'll be some things that you feel free to speak up about. The next several chapters are going to be designating the different tribes and the piece of property. And we're certainly not going to go over all the boundaries and the pass of Scorpion, this valley and this wadi and all that kind of stuff. Because, but anyway, you can get a map sometime.
One question, was Hebron, did it wind up being part of Judah or part of Israel?
It's going to be, let me see. I don't know the answer to your question. It's going to, I think, it's probably going to be in Israel.
I think verse 13 says it's among, a portion among the sons of Judah.
Yeah. The Jephunneh. Yeah. So, but I don't know what tribe that is. Y'all know what tribe that is? I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to look up if you look that up. But when we get to those cities and whenever they're designated, there's gonna be 3 on each side. There's gonna be one in the north, one in the central part, and one in the southern part on each side of the Jordan River.
It's just south of
And so,
Bethlehem.
pardon?
Said it's just south of Bethlehem. So that is Judah.
So that would be in Judah.
Southward.
Bethlehem. All right. Chapter 15. Jerusalem is going to be in Judah's inheritance. Caleb the son of Jephunneh, he gave part of the children of Judah according to the commandments of the Lord to Joshua, even the city of Arba, the father of Anak, which was the city of Hebron. That was in Judah.
Yeah.
And Caleb drove out the sons of Anak, and it lists who they are in verse 14. Verse 17, I found interesting. And somebody tell me, let me read it and you tell me why it would be interesting. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it, talking about this city of Kirjath Sepher, verse 16. Caleb, as they were conquering it, he said, whoever goes in and takes this city first, I'll give him my daughter to be his bride. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it, and he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. Now, anybody know why that would be interesting to me? He was the first judge. What's the first thing you have in the morning? Eat. So Othniel was the first judge. He will become the first judge. Now, you'll remember that. All right? You may not remember this. You may not remember the second one, but you'll remember the first one. But we'll get there. All right? And that's in Judges chapter 3, verse 9. If you want to cross-reference your Bible right there with Othniel. Some of these boundaries are pretty interesting if you look them up, and what they mean. It's really kind of fun to look up the thing. Verse 7, for instance, the border went down from Debir to the valley of Achor. Anybody know what Achor means? What does the word Achor mean?
Giant.
Trouble. Trouble. The valley of trouble. And that's going to be important when you get over into, you remember who the prophet was that God told to go marry a prostitute? Hosea. And he's going to make a statement, I'm going to give my people the valley of Achor as a door of hope. The valley of trouble. And so he says, I'm going to bring her out into the desert and allure her, and I'm going to speak words, to allure her there and give her the valley of Achor as a door of hope. So he said, I'm going to trouble her. I'm going to bring trouble on Israel to cause them to come back to me. That will be the door of hope. There's a real lesson there. That sometimes what we need to turn our lives around is we need some trouble in our life to cause us to wake up. And that's what he's going to say. But anyway, that's kind of interesting little piece of information there. And it says, from the valley of Achor northward, looking toward Gilgal, for that going up to Adullam. That means pass of blood. Pass of blood. And then he says, and the border that passes the water from En Shemesh going out from En Rogel. That is going to be the Jericho Road. It's going to become the Jericho Road. Anything important happen on Jericho Road? You remember? Come on. New Testament. Somebody got waylaid on the Jericho Road.
Was that Damascus?
Somebody got waylaid. Jesus told the story. Yeah, the Good Samaritan story.
Yeah.
It was on the Jericho Road. All right, anyway, we won't go into more detail, but all that's kind of fun. I'm certainly not going to read the cities that they were given from, verse 21 beginning to the tribe of Judah. And they got he just keep going on and on and on, all these cities. It's pretty amazing. You know that land, the whole land's not very big. I mean, if any of you ever made the trip
Judah,
And you think, pardon?
of Judah,
Yeah, well, no, of the whole land.
the whole land.
Yeah, and so I'm saying, in this one place that Judah got, you got all these little cities. All these little cities. And each one of them were pretty much self-contained. They had their own little military, and they had their own king and so forth. And you think about, you look at all of these and think, okay, they gotta conquer all these cities. Man, this is a job, you know what I'm saying? This is tough. And so this was just in Judah's area here. It'll talk about in the plains, they got these cities, and in the mountains, they got these cities and so forth.
They must have all been pretty close together.
Yeah, they had to be. They had to be.
I think about 150 miles tops of bottom, maybe 50 wide, something like that.
They probably is pretty close, yeah. And then verse 63 is for the Jebusites, the inheritance of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites, well, the children of Judah and Jerusalem unto this day. So Jerusalem wasn't fully conquered. Now, Jerusalem wasn't all that important yet. It was, original name was Jebus. And it became Jerusalem. And it didn't become important until, in the history of Israel until when? David made it capital, right? Became the capital of Judah under
At
King
this
David.
time, wasn't it on around Seven Hills, there were 7 hills in Jerusalem, they said that later on they flattened all, most of those hills around there.
They filled in for the tabernacle, part of it, to build, I don't know, I mean the temple, to build it, yeah.
What was the significance of Jebusites being so hard to conquer?
I don't know, Jerusalem evidently was a strong walled city, and its location is, as Sarah said, it was on hills. Hills are a lot tougher to conquer than valleys. And, I mean, you can shoot down on people that's, more effective than shooting up at them. So and this is not gonna be the only, spot that they failed to conquer. There's gonna be some others also. And so we find, did they have the ability to drive them out? They did, but they evidently weren't motivated enough.
Yeah, what cost?
And, it's gonna be true, and the Lord's gonna finally, whenever they settle down and they quit conquering, He's gonna say, okay, you didn't conquer it all, so I'm gonna leave these people here and not drive them out, and they're gonna be thorns in your side to prove, whether or not you'll serve me or not. So they're gonna be left there. Then chapter 16. This is still the children of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. When you go back to Genesis 48, it's kind of fun to talk about how many tribes were there. There originally were 12, right? And then Joseph, being one of those tribes, he had 2 sons, and Jacob adopted those 2 boys, right? So there's now 13 potentially, right? And then what else kind of threw a wrench in the works with that?
Levites.
Pardon?
The
chapter 17 talks some about how Ephraim became so large. All right, we won't go through all that. Chapter 18 and 19, you can, at the beginning of chapter 18, you can put a little dot, 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 and put, 7 remaining tribes. And chapter 18 and 19 is going to give you a list, and you can go through, first of all, verse 11, Benjamin tells about his inheritance. Chapter 19, verse 1, Simeon. Verse 10, Zebulun. Now, I highlighted those in my Bible, so it just kind of falls out into an outline for you. Verse 17 is Issachar. Verse 24 is Asher. Verse 32 is Naphtali. Verse 40 is Dan. And so you have these that were remaining, and then it's going to give a description of the territory that each one of them got.
All this land people have inherited back in the Bible, do they still have an inheritance today? Is it still?
Do the
belong-
Jews still
belongs
have
to
it?
them?
They came back in 1948 and claimed some of it back, but not the entire part. And all that's real complicated. I mean,
I'd hate to be the one having to decide what land got where with you.
it can't, I mean, this is exactly what this is about, so that's Gaza, West Bank, and all that. It's a mess. It always has been a mess, all right? And, you know, the claim, you go back, it's like a claim for the United States of America. Who's that belong to? Does it belong to the native Indians? Does it belong to the people who came in and drove the Indians out? And so, you're standing, if you're an Indian, you know, you've got one point of view. If your ancestors came over, you know, from some other country, you got another point of view. And so that's what's happened that's what's happened in Gaza, that's what's happened in Israel and West Bank.
Well, it's just like always history.
Yeah, it depends on.
Look, the strongest prevail.
They do, but that doesn't mean it's right.
No, it doesn't,
Right.
but the strongest prevail.
And, you know, that's what the Palestinians are claiming. You know, yeah, they came and took the land back with that war, but it was ours and it belongs to us. You know, anyway, we won't get there. All right. Something worth noting right here is verse 9 of chapter 19. Look at it. Out of the portion of the children of Judah, the inheritance was the inheritance of the children of Simeon. For the part of the children of Judah was too much for them. Therefore the children of Simeon had their inheritance within the inheritance of Judah. So, that's one of the things that kind of becomes a mystery whenever it talks about the 2 southern tribes. It almost ignores Simeon, because Simeon will essentially be absorbed into Judah's territory, because they're going to get this little circle of land right out of the middle of Judah's territory. So that's where Simeon is going to
That's
be.
not been very many.
Pardon?
That's not been very many people.
It was a smaller tribe. It was a smaller tribe. And I mean, you know, when you got a 1,040 acres, you know?
And probably the people of Judah didn't like it that they got a lot of land, did they?
No, it was more than they could handle. So they probably invited them in because it was too much for them. I mean, you know, you've got to, in all of this, you get really excited in this land grab, and if you're not real careful, you might get more than you can get around in a day, you know? You might not be able to protect all that you lay your claim to. And so you want to make sure that what you lay your claim to, you can hold on to. And so Judah, I mean, they got to know that any of these people that ran, they're going to, well, someday they're going to try to come back and claim their land back, right? And,
Get too many lion shacks.
pardon?
Get too many lion shacks.
S-I-D-O-N, which is Sidon. And that's in what whose territory? Tyre and Sidon. That's Philistine territory, right? Philistine territory. And it says, and the coast turns to Ramah and the strong city of Tyre. So it makes a point here, and they did not drive out all of the Phoenicians that were in that area.
So Tyre and Sidon were in Canaan?
Yes, it was a part originally of
I did not know that.
So, let's see,
Where would that be on the map? Where would Tyre and Sidon be?
it's gonna be right here in this Philistine area. It actually is gonna be right up here between where Philistia and Phoenicia. They were port cities, so they were rich, strong cities. Look at verse 40, talking about Dan. Look at verse 47. The coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them, so they didn't have enough land. The children of Dan went to fight against Leshem. And by the way, that city is going to be renamed Dan. Okay? It will be the northernmost city in the promised land. From whenever it's going to talk about all the way from the north to the south, it's going to say from Dan to Beersheba, right? So this is going to be, Dan's territory was the extreme north part of the territory. And they said this, we don't have enough. So they took it, Leshem, took it, smote it with the edge of the sword, possessed it, dwelled therein, and called Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan their father. Then verse 49, Caleb also, verse 49, it says, when they made an end of dividing the land by the inheritance of the coast, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Joshua the son of Nun among them. So Caleb has gotten his special piece of ground. Now Joshua is going to get his special piece of ground. Right? According to the word of the Lord, he gave him the city which he asked, even Timnath Serah in Mount Ephraim. He built the city and dwelt there. It's talking about Joshua. And these are the inheritances which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun, the heads of the fathers, tribe of the children of Israel, divided for inheritance by lot in Shiloh before the Lord, at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So that's where all this dividing of the land took place. They were at the door of the tabernacle. Tabernacle was located at this time where? Shiloh. Shiloh. Now, if somebody wants to take a little time and do a little digging on Shiloh, I would like for you to do that. Because there's going to be, later on, there's going to be a reference to the Lord is going to do something to this city like he did to Shiloh. I don't know what he did to Shiloh. I can't find it. So, if any of you can dig that out, then that'll be a little challenge for you. And I'll give you a little time if you dig it out. It's your kind of specialty. So,
I was just pondering that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pick it on the new kid.
that's right. Well, she loves it, and she does a good job at doing it. So, that's where the tabernacle was put once they crossed into the land. That's where it stayed for a long time. But the Lord did something there that was not good. All right, and it's going to end up during the days of the kings that the priests are not going to trust David with the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle are going to be separated. David's going to bring the tabernacle into the city of Jerusalem, or just outside the city of Jerusalem. But the Ark of the Covenant's not going to come. The priest evidently, I'm thinking they didn't trust David with it, or something to that effect. And so that's where all that, you remember, David's going to bring the Ark of the Covenant in,
says in Psalms here, it said, when God heard, he was full of wrath and early rejected Israel. He forsaken dwelling at Shiloh, the tent where he dwelt among mankind, delivered his power to captivity, his glory to the hand of the foe.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that that happened, I just don't know when or the details about it, but, and I don't know why. So anyway, that's just, if somebody would like to do that. Do we want to stop there?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me give you one more little bit, chapter 20, we'll stop at the end of chapter 20. Chapter 20 gives us 6 cities of refuge. And if you want to go back to the background of that, you remember what it is anyway, but if you want to cross-reference your Bible there, Numbers 35, verse 9 through 34 is the background of the cities of refuge, what their purpose was. Numbers 35, 9 through 34. And we remember what their purpose was, right? There were 6 cities, there's going to be 3 on each side, and they're going to be evenly spaced so that somebody can get there quickly. Why would they need to get there quickly?
Because they're trouble. They
Because
killed somebody.
the cities of refuge were designed for what?
People who had killed someone accidentally.
Accidentally, that's right. If there was a death and it was not premeditated, then that person could, once he saw this guy that he accidentally killed died, he could start running. He better not go in and pack your bag. He better run. And he knew where the nearest city of refuge was, I promise you. And so he ran to the city of refuge, and he would go into, it would be a place of safety for him against who?
Whoever was coming after him,
Family
a
member.
family member.
Yeah, it was called the Avenger of Blood. Right. He'd be chasing him. He could catch him, he could kill him.
He had to stay there till the king died, too.
Until the high priest died.
Oh, the high priest.
That's right. He had to stay there until, if there was a trial, by the way. I mean, once he got in there, it didn't automatically, I mean, he had safety until truth was found out about it, because there'd be people who killed somebody who try to run in and, claim that it was an accident when in fact it wasn't. So there was gonna be a trial. But once it was established that this was not deliberate act, then he, as long as he stayed inside that city, which, I mean, you're in prison, right? And you can't go out until the high priest died, and I'm thinking the high priest better not get too close to the walls of that city. You know what I'm saying? He might accidentally get a stone, a stone might fall on his head or something, something like that. But, anyway, we'll stop right there. Chapter 19, verse 1 through 13 talks about how they're spread out evenly. All right. Let's return thanks for our food. Greg, would you return thanks for it?
Father, we thank you so much for this group that meets here on Tuesday morning. Father, we thank you for the lessons we're learning. We thank you for your word, what it means to us. Bless Ken as he does his research on this and shares his knowledge with us. Thank you so much for that. Father, as we're about to have a meal together, we ask you to bless this food, bless the hands that prepare